This morning we are going to talk all about transforming overwhelm. And for those of you who have been following for a while, this is one of my favorite topics because so often we can get so sidelined by our overwhelm. And one of the first things that I want to kind of bring some awareness to is that when you're feeling this sensation of overwhelm, often it's obviously you've got a lot going on. Something's going on that's put you to the point of experiencing the emotion of overwhelm, of feeling like, oh my gosh, this is more than I can handle, too much than I can handle in some emotional way. So you may be overwhelmed by emotions of sadness. You may be overwhelmed by complexity in your business. And eventually, overwhelm can lead to stress of all kinds, stress in your body. And what often happens though is that when we're feeling really overwhelmed, we kind of almost collapse into a little bit of a victim. Not saying that you are a victim, it's just that we sometimes can collapse in this feeling of victim because essentially overwhelm, some aspects of overwhelm are that the belief system behind it is that you don't believe that you can, or that you don't believe that you're capable. And what we know is that that's not true. Our inner critic at the moment, or those inner gremlins, they may really, really want to convince us that that's true, but it's simply not true. And it's up to us in that moment of overwhelm to go from that feeling of victim, of overwhelm, I can't do it, I don't think I can, and everyone has kind of their own, you'll have your own internal gremlins, if you will, right? So your patterns may be that you don't know how, or your pattern may be you're not good enough, or that, you're not smart enough, or pretty enough. It could be like physical stuff, like who knows, right? Everyone has their own stuff that is making them feel like they can't, or that they're, not able to. Well, here's the part that I really, really love is that when you're in a situation in business, especially if you're following your calling, something that's coming through, is that you're being put in a position where you're actually being called to rise to this. And this is what I love supporting my clients on, is that essentially you are being called to this greater thing, this thing that is bigger than you. And so when you're hitting this feeling of overwhelm, this is obviously in kind of when you are trying to birth something big into the world, and you're experiencing this, it's to remember that you can do this. And this is a lot of the work that I'm doing with my clients, is reminding them essentially of, and reminding you of how truly capable you are, and how many things that you've accomplished and created massive shifts with thus far in your life and overcome, and how much you've gotten through stress before, and you've done it before, and you can do it again this time. And so we come back to like this very like creative, resourceful, playful wonder, and really coming back into feeling empowered. Now, I want to actually make sure that I address here that sometimes overwhelm comes, this is a really big one, and actually was no coincidence today. I was really excited to see that this came out. No coincidence today that I had an interview today come out. There's this great email list, email newsletter that comes out every once in a while, and it's called the Gmail Genius. And I've been receiving them because I signed up for one of their other tools. They have this awesome tool called GMass. If you're interested, you can check that out. But then they were like, hey, we thought you might be interested in this Gmail Genius. So I'd been getting it for a little while. And then I happened to see my friend Sarah Kathleen Peck was interviewed on there. And I was like, that's awesome. And then I had done the interview with my friend Amanda of Wellpreneur, and we did it all on email overwhelm. And that especially as a small business owner, as a solopreneur maybe, as a business owner of any kind, any role that you're in, honestly, email can be so overwhelming. It can be like so insane trying to like keep up with our inbox. And so we did this whole awesome podcast, which I'll link to in the show notes here, about, or in the comments, about email overwhelm, and like some really powerful tips. She's like super geeky like me, and we've been coaches and consultants for a long time, so that's really chock full. And then Gmail Genius came out with an interview, and it just actually went out today, so I'll post that as well. And also, and in that I've got some really powerful questions to ask yourself and to walk yourself through. So if you experience email overwhelm at any time, I've got two really awesome resources for you in that regard. And both of those really point back to something that I am really geeked about, which, as many of you guys know, for a long time, just being in online and in the internet world and in the tech world, that I'm super geeked on systems. And especially as a creative, heart-centered entrepreneur that's putting your all into your business and putting your heart forward all the time and wanting to be open and expansive and conscious, that you need to be making sure not only that you're taking care of your emotional energy, your physical, mental, spiritual, emotional, did I get all of them? Energy, but that you have a strong foundation in place, and that you've got these systems in place that are going to support you. Because as you know, you're needing to kind of have all your capacities for the work that you're doing in the world, the way that you're serving, you want to make sure that you are knowing that your systems are taking care of you. And that means you're not keeping too much in your head. It means that you're not doing, like having your physical energy leak out where you're doing a bunch of stuff that you don't need to be doing. And I actually had this read this the other day, that somebody was saying something about, I read this post the other day where this woman was saying how she just like runs out of time at the end of every day, and her to-do lists are so long, and what app could help her organize. So I loved that she was like seeking a system. And I also am really a huge fan of hiring an assistant. And I actually think I'm going to put out some kind of offering here that soon about like hiring and delegating. So if that's of interest to you, or you're in a position where you're wanting to receive some support around hiring and delegating, give me some likes, or even make a comment of like, yes, you'd be interested in that. Because I find that either people are overwhelmed at even the thought of having to find somebody, or you've gotten yourself to a place in your business that you're just like, oh my God, I need somebody yesterday. I don't have time to train somebody. Usually as a solopreneur, if you're super busy and things are going well, you're actually in a position where by the time you needed somebody like yesterday, and there's no time to onboard them. Things are already falling through the cracks. So the number one tip I have for you there is to actually hire somebody before you think you're ready, because you're going to need to have time to set up your SOPs, which are standard operating procedures, some of your regular kind of what is the strategy that you're going to have them do. And this is what I help a lot of my clients with as well, is like, if you don't even know where to start with a VA, one of the big things that I start looking at is, my whole lens this year is like double down on your genius. So if you look at the stuff that you're really here to do, and you're meant to do, you're supposed to be doing, you're supposed to be dedicating a lot of your time and energy to, not even supposed to, but like, that this is where your energy is best spent in the world. So, for me, this is in creating content, in writing, in doing the actual coaching work I do, in leading people, speaking, and it's not to be staring at my inbox all day, so you'll see that I share that in the, both in the email overwhelm interview with Amanda on Wellpreneur, as well as in the Gmail Genius interview. Big fan of having, and I finally took the leap of having my assistant help me in my inbox, which has been eye-opening in so many ways. But one of the big tips that I give you in the Gmail Genius, and both of them actually, because I'm just such a big believer in it now, is similar. So if you are in business for yourself, you'll know the value of having your say like your bank accounts, right? The value of having your business bank account and your personal account separate. You've got to have those two separate. Keeps it really clean. There's no confusion. Same thing with your business. Have a business account, an email account, and a personal email account. And what I go into in the Gmail Genius, a little bit maybe in the podcast episode, but definitely in Gmail Genius, as I talk about all the different inboxes that I have for various departments in my business as well. And even if you're a solopreneur on your own, you'll still find this helpful. I still think it's really great to be able to separate them for the day that you grow your business and that you are bringing in other people. And that's kind of the whole thing here as well, especially with the hiring and delegating course that I want to do, is to really exemplify how important it is that you are already thinking forward to who you would hire, what you would hire them for, what might that look like. Otherwise, I'm here to tell you there's been no businesses that, you know, scale beyond 6 figures and are really able to do it in a way that is sustainable and honoring you, your own time, your energy. I mean, you can stay small like that for a long time, but if you are in your own business and you're wanting to really create a sustainable, profitable future for yourself, consider, you know, hiring someone else, and I'd be happy to support you with that, or just leave a comment and let me know. So one final piece on transforming overwhelm that I will share is one of the biggest things that I see with so many clients and just, you know, people in general, is a really loose set of boundaries. And that ultimately, when we are feeling overwhelmed, it's that we may not have been setting our boundaries strong enough for ourselves. And so that's, I mean, honestly, that's exactly what this, what my email tips are. It's that I've put some boundaries, some very, very clear, you know, pathways for how to get to me, how to get to my bookkeeper, how to get to my assistant, right? Like, if you're looking for a specific thing, this is where you go. So there's some really, really clear pathways there, clear perimeters around what those, you know, inboxes hold. And that's just simply a boundary. It says, here's how I will be communicated with, here's how I choose to spend my energy. And that's the same with your business. When it comes to when you're available with your clients, having very clear boundaries, if for nothing else with yourself, you know, they don't even need to know them, but it could show up in the scheduler that you use. Your scheduler only has certain times available, and it's because you're setting a boundary and for your time on other certain days or certain parts of your day, so that you know that those are reserved for you. And boundaries can be really, really tricky, again, coming back to just being a really heart-centered, giving person who wants so much to, you know, be everything for everyone and take care of others. And, you know, if you are someone who's super heart-forward, then it's easy to kind of get into this place of wanting to be so available. And a really, really important exercise here is to really come into relationship with how much might you be overgiving, how much is the people pleaser kind of at work, and recognizing when you are in a position of wanting to give so much because it's actually driven by those underlying feelings of not enough, or you know, doing it right, or what have you. So it kind of puts you into that tizzy. It's what I call the hamster wheel of not enough, where we're like, but I am enough, look at this, you know, and we kind of get ourselves like in this total overgiving place. So transforming overwhelm, one of the big things is, you know, coming into relationship, first of all, of what may be deeper driving. This is the transformational piece, is, you know, doing some work to really surface what's going on here, what's driving this behavior, what's the belief that is running here that is actually causing me to behave in this way, that's ultimately not honoring yourself and really not honoring your client as well. If for nothing else, that eventually you may get burnout, you may start to feel resentful. All these other side effects can come up when we're actually not honoring our own boundaries or don't have them set well in the first place. So making sure that you're really clear on, you know, what are your boundaries? What do you need in order to create this space for you to create in your life, to operate your business in the best way possible? What systems do you need to have in place? Where do you need to start saying no more? It's really like brilliant and juicy, wonderful thing to be able to say yes to so many things, but to really be able to bring it back and acknowledge where you need to be saying no, and creating those clearer boundaries, and getting clear that you're not going to, you know, this is again watching what comes up. In fact, that's, if for any of you guys who are resonating with this and noticing that this is a piece, an area where you could use to be doing this, if there's even some small party that's like, yeah, I probably could use to be doing that in some areas, is just to wonder into what actually to practice. I would actually not even have you wonder and think about it. I would actually have you practice and have one of your first steps be is actually practicing saying no. All this actually comes back to your relationship with yourself and your connection with yourself, because you have to be listening to this internal, and I'll do this a lot as a reflection for my clients as well, is they'll be telling me about something, and I'll be able to say, it sounds pretty clear what your answer is, but sometimes we look outside of ourselves for permission, and what you've heard me say before is that this is really about insourcing. So as much as I'm a fan of hiring and delegating and being able to bring some other people, you have to first start with this insourcing, being really clear on what is your, no, or this doesn't quite feel right, and really honoring that, listening to that, acting on it, as well as then what's the full body yes, but then coming back to make sure, okay, awesome that this is a full body yes, but you also want to make sure, is that in alignment? Because as creatives, we can be like, ooh, squirrel, that's so awesome, let's do this. But you want to come back to, your purpose and your goals, and making sure that that's aligned for you, so that, and that is the greatest love, your greatest love for yourself, greatest honoring of yourself, is making sure that you're not distracting yourself. So all of this is relationship with self, and your own pathway to transforming overwhelm is really truly remembering that you are your greatest compass, and kind of grounded being here, to ground yourself in your own knowing, ground yourself in your own capability and power and ability to set these boundaries, to make these choices, and that there is a way, right? And even if it's that your inbox is overwhelming and you want to be like, oh, I can't handle it, it's too much, you can handle it, and there are ways to handle it. So I will put these links for you. The link to the podcast for Transforming Overwhelm, and for the email Overwhelm, as well as this new interview that just went out today. And hopefully these tips have been helpful. I would love to hear, what ways you have worked on transforming overwhelm in your own life and business, what boundaries maybe you've put in place, what you've noticed that has been, kind of leaking your energy, whether it's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and what you've put in place, what systems or processes or boundaries you've put in place to help guide the energy in your business a little bit better, create that strong foundation. And I look forward to hearing from you in the comments. Thanks for joining. Mwah.